everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. It's great to see everyone. Today we have, of course, my co-founder Tarak here with me today, as well as Lalit Kale. Lalit, hello. Say hi to everybody.
Hello.
Uh,
Hi, everyone. Hi.
and so a little bit about Lalit. And Lalit, maybe you could share some about yourself. He's a senior solution architect, systematic problem solver, as he likes to call himself, with experience in developing and designing large-scale distributed systems. And today he's going to be joining us to talk about a topic that comes up a lot when we talk with customers about infra code base, which is internal developer platforms. There's been a long history of internal developer platforms and the way that they've been developed to support application developers and engineering organizations at companies. And so we're going to have a conversation, experience-based conversation with Lalit today about exactly what all that means. So Lalit, anything else you want to say about yourself?
No, I think it's thanks for having me here on the infra code base and the fantastic work you guys are doing, especially Tarak with the community work I'm seeing and the templates. So it like my background goes back 20 years, and I have been into both sides of the aisle. So I've been into the product organization, doing the product architecture, and having or first-hand experience the friction from the platform organizations, um, and even being in the same place as a us against them kind of a mindset, and get over it and then join the platform organization. And pretty much my experience is from the cruise control days, or even from the DOS batch files and the continuous the beginning days of the continuous delivery, and till the nowadays we are doing all the things with the agents and agentic workflows. So yeah, I think pretty much that sums up my experience, and I've been into the community, and I'm passionate about specifically AWS cloud. Been recognized by AWS for last 6 years as a community builder, and I have written and published 2 books. Again, this is just paying it forward. So I've written microservices books, building with .NET. That was with Azure in back in 2017, I guess. And recently, last year, I published another book with the AWS and event-driven architecture. So the long story is, I wear many hats, and I don't care what hat I'm wearing, but I want to make my organization successful. So that's more of a mindset I carry nowadays after so many war stories.
Yeah, so Lalit, the man of many hats, and I would say it's an honor to have you here, and hopefully everybody hearing about Lalit's background, you know how fortunate we are to have him here today to provide some insights to us about IDPs and how companies are using those. Tarak, before we send you into the comments, and just to let everybody know, we're monitoring the comments. If you say things in the comments,
Yes.
Tarak will be bringing those forward. We're going to be answering your questions, so please do leave things in the comments. We're monitoring, and we will happily answer any questions that you have. This should be interactive, and we really are here to give to everyone on this call. So the more you ask, the more that we can give. Otherwise, we're going to be going through and talking with Lalit about his experience. So Tarak, anything else you want to say before I drop you down?
No.
Thank you so much. Lalit has been a great friend from the past 5 years. And to be honest, thank you so much, Lalit, for being with us today. I really love it. Thank you.
Feeling is neutral.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Yeah,
much.
and Lalit mentioned the community stuff too, and Tarak has been doing an amazing job building this community. There's InfraCodeBase, which is launching. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about that in just a little while, but we're going to get straight into the content that you guys came here for. We'll see you soon, Tarak.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, man. So let's dive into it. Look, I want to go through a little bit of a flow with you here. I think what I'd
Sure.
like to start with, Lalit, is the start with the tension, right? Like,
Yep.
what actually slows down software delivery at scale in your mind from what you've seen?
I think my fundamental principle is, even today, and this is because we are hearing these buzzwords of AI, and oh, how smart my AI agent is or coding agent is, and it can generate code. But the bottleneck was never writing the code. It was always provisioning the infrastructure, waiting for permissions, deployment. Oh, we don't have the observability. So more of operational stuff, and then prominently the flashing light is security.
Mhm.
And and all the controls that we need to do on the enterprise side. So I believe that the friction originates from the mindset and the way we have been set up as organizations and team topologies. So just to give a background, I think when the organizations are set up for is essentially the structure is divided between the, oh, we have this DevOps team and we have a product teams or engineering teams and or enablement teams, then the same mindset which I was referring in my introduction, like us against them, that flourishes, and it naturally exposes your silos. Even the engineering leaders on those particular groups get into the mind, because we are all humans, we get into that group mindset or mentality of saying and being possessive about the particular, or possessive and protective about those particular things, and naturally then, oh, whatever the DevOps group is doing or cloud group is doing, that tool is not really suitable for ourselves, so let's reinvent the wheel. Bring in some vendor or do some sort of a custom homegrown shadow work, and that all brings the friction. Not necessarily there is always a shared functions of security or revenue ops that is also or the growth organization is also contributing to those factors. And so it's a competing priorities, but the alignment is missing and the silos get exposed through this. So teams are just working in those silos, which is essentially getting so that's the whole reason of being having a friction. But the friction necessarily not really comes out. You may see the organization, everybody is so friendly and everybody's talking to everybody else, but they are carrying a lot of the things into their head. So despite of like being nice to everyone else as a human beings, we still see the friction. But that friction is not necessarily in just the tools friction is a one part, but second friction is essentially carrying a lot of things in your head. And that means for developers saying, oh, you have to have this flag switched on, you should have this configuration on the lower environment, or for security person, oh, you need to have this kind of a firewall knob turn on for this particular application or workload. So those cognitive burden itself is also a friction, at least from my perspective.
No, that's 100% spot on. And I've seen this play out too. We were once was working with a $17 billion financial institution, and I would say, like, just in general, as organizations get larger and more operationally complex, and as compliance requirements grow, the more and more this problem compounds, and probably not linearly with the complexity of the business, right? There's sort of this exponential growth of complexity that really creates a lot of problems. And at this bank that I was working with, we saw this everywhere. There was a DevOps team that was almost pitted against another team that was focused on other cloud components and pieces. And it wasn't like, and I think what you're kind of almost getting to is this idea of the evolution of like platform engineering and bringing more of these teams together, making things more seamless across them. And then so that's like the organizational component. And then you've got the IDPs, which is like the way to help people shift left and adopt cloud in a more seamless way as these things go through. And we see this all the time with customers of our product Infra Code Base, which is that what we've kind of de-emphasized is like code generation is the least important part of what actually happens here. It's the universal context. It's the universal access to applications that all of your teams use, because it collapses the things that create friction and silos of knowledge within your organization so everybody can deliver better. Like everything you said just resonates so well and is so spot on with I've also experienced in my career.
So Justin, you talked about a couple of terms there. So I just want to, I'm a stickler for the terms. Sorry about that. But essentially the DevOps itself is an umbrella term for having a mindset. That's what I believe. Like it's a cultural shift and methodical approach to unify the development and the operational concerns and improve the like collaboration, automation, everything else, right? Platform engineering, that's another word that you use. So for me, platform engineering is all essence, or it boils down to time to value. right? For organization, if the product itself is defining the value, then time to value is the platform engineering itself is the accelerating and overarching umbrella of tools, workflow, ways of working, everything else, which is delivering the time to value. And again, we talked about another term called IDP, which is also in our title of this session. So for me, IDP is people I use the short form, but I define it as a internal developer platform, not the portal. Sometimes you can also refer it as a portal, but portal is a very small component or tooling of the internal developer platform. So IDP is designed to, in fact, or the original idea came from the Spotify to do the same, like exactly
With
reducing
Backstage, right?
the cognitive,
Backstage and all that,
cognitive to reduce the. So IDP came into existence to reduce the essentially the cognitive burden of the engineering teams, and provide the golden paths.
That's right. So look, okay, what do we cover so far to like re-anchor us? The idea, the core idea isn't that code isn't the bottleneck. It's everything around it. You started to talk a bit about like why if developers can write code, why that productivity still drops as organizations grow, cognitive load, fragmentation, organizational complexity. So we're kind of framing the problem there, and like let's maybe dig in and expose a bit of the root cause of this, right? So what happens, and because we've talked a little bit about now, we're going to talk a little bit more about DevOps and platform engineering. We'll come back to that. But what happens when every team owns infrastructure and security and deployment all on their own, right? So you've talked a bit about the silos and cognitive load, but maybe dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So essentially, it looks like it's reinventing the wheel. So if you remember the very famous cartoon, "Go away, we are busy in this work." And we cannot adopt the new.
Pull that up. I wish I had the image ready to like pull up for everybody, but yeah,
exactly. So that's what happens, and not necessarily it is good for the organization. Despite in the very short term mindset, the teams may think that they have won and remove the friction by doing some sort of shortcut work or reinventing the wheel itself, whether that is by implementing their own tool or own ways of working, or bypassing some of the guardrails which is provided by the organization itself. In the long run, I think that's still that shows the failure on the leadership part for the organization, and it reflects usually if you as an organization you have invested into the platform engineering itself, right? And again, this is a huge massive the platform, if the platform organization exists in your company, definitely it's a heavy investment the organization has done and committed to. So I believe that as every engineer should respect that, not necessarily respecting the ways of working, or say if you have some sort of a friction, you should highlight that friction, but as in guardrail, the platform engineering organization exists to make your job easy as an engineer.
Absolutely. And look, I love the way you communicate topics. This is actually super amazing. And I want to go back to some things you were just saying a minute ago around this definition of DevOps and the definition of platform engineering. So what changes? So we've defined those things. What changes when you move from a DevOps mindset to a platform engineering mindset? What are the specific key components organizationally that enable that reduced cognitive load, that faster delivery, that more consistent security posture as you try to expose more of these capabilities to more of your application developers within your company?
Yeah, so there are two approaches essentially, or two observations. First is you start to see when you're coming out of the product organization. In my case, I was coming out of the Verizon Connect, having a large enterprise product, and having multiple delivery teams working for that. So when I was in the product organization and product architect, I was focusing on just the business logic and the flows and the infrastructure. That's more of a hidden tax. But when I flipped to say my next employer, which is Amdocs, and I was tasked with building the product like the shared capability platform or a PaaS platform for the product portfolio. That time, the very first observation is you start seeing the patterns, saying, "Oh, this product team or product organization or BU, whatever you want to call it, uh, they are also needed the identity access, then the security guardrails. They also need to go for the SOC 2 compliance. The same thing is driven by multiple products or product organization, right? So you see the access pattern, which is emerging patterns in your organization, and that's really only be seen by the platform organization. And you can inherently correlate, especially in my case, because I was coming from the product background. I was able to correlate, saying, "Oh, there is so much things to do." So you start to uh, like concentrate your focus or capabilities around the capabilities, saying these are the capabilities that is needed across the organization. And that may be as simple as saying, "Oh, our CI/CD tool is taking 15 minutes. We don't have linting or security checks in between. Why don't we improve it?" But then you will get the answer from the product team saying, "Sorry, but we have this delivery or sprint release to be done, so it is taking backseat in the
Yeah,
and somewhere in the backlog."
what you're kind of saying is super important, because what it means is companies that really want to do this well have to make a concerted effort and a dedicated investment in this
Yeah,
exact capability, because otherwise you have this problem, right? I think you have to
yeah,
treat it like a product almost within your company, to say that, hey, we have a group of people who are staffed to solve this problem, and all they care about is understanding where the friction is and making things better continuously for people all the time. It can't be a one-off. It can't be standing up a tool. It's got to be a concerted effort around the mindset of how we want to change the way that we deliver within an organization. And we're kind of dancing around a word that we haven't really used, but because I love that you're so good with definitions, maybe you could help also share, like, when we think about this concept, what do we mean when people talk about shifting left? What does that mean in practice? What does it mean in definition? How does that fold into this whole conversation?
I think industry and even internet has a lot of buzzwords, especially when we were like last couple of years, everybody was thinking about shifting left. My version of shifting left is just be a proactive guy and try to see fundamentally who's your internal customer and satisfy the need of internal customer. But again, you put a right point, or you hit the bullseye when you said the shift is in the mindset. So the way we should believe, or we should work is, you have an end customer which is paying for the organizational value product or services, and start building that internal customer chain, right? So probably your shared function, which is a CISO or some sort of a infosec, they are also your end customers, and in a way you are also their customers, right? So start to build that internal customer chain. So if you try to see, even your GTM and revenue or salespeople form that part of the chain. And if you try to think about what is the previous function to yourself, say, "Oh, I'm just an engineer," right? Usually that's the naive version of it, right? "I'm just an engineer," but you are interacting with the product organization, you are interacting and contributing and influencing on the architecture. You're also contributing on the sort of a sales or post sales or pre-sales, right? So if you can think of as in a holistic manner, and try to do some sort of use your tooling, instrumentation, engineering for problem solving inside your organization, that's a shift left for me. But yeah, it in traditional manner, it just defined as a making sure that you are taking care of your own artifact product delivery things.
Awesome. Great. So look, I think we've talked now pretty good amount about the root cause. Love that. Kind of that shift in the mindset from DevOps to platform engineering. And now I want to make it a little bit concrete for people,
Yeah.
because now we're getting into what is really a developer platform, and what do these things mean when you're operating within an environment. So what does a good internal developer platform actually provide for teams, right? So we're saying it's a capability, it needs to be invested in as like a product, and you serve internal customers and all these things. What are the things that this internal developer platform should do, and not at a technical feature level, but as a as a general purpose, like what are we trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, so in general purpose, again, the holistic thing is you should have a lowest cognitive burden for your engineer, so they don't make me think, right? That should be your motto for the platform organization. So it's essentially, you press the button, you send the PR, and rest of the things happen automatically, whether that's doing the compilation, build, packaging, and the biggest part is not really even those three things, but deployment, security, and operational concerns about the alerting, monitoring, all those aspects, right? Or instrumentation, observability. So that really constitute the internal developer platform. On the leadership level, however, the way you should start, and again, because leader has to do the budgeting and justify the budgets to the enterprise on enterprise level, right? For the CFOs and likes of those, you need to start accumulating, saying what is my requirement for the capability, what is the capabilities that I need to develop for my organization. So it's, think of it like capabilities are nothing but like you are developing a muscle, and when you are trying to develop a muscle, you go to the gym and you have a sore muscle for a couple of days, but so that's painful, but you know that on the longer term you are going to be at a better place, right, as a physical health. So same way, platform engineering itself, or the capabilities that concretely, and this can be, capabilities can be, yeah, I can ship anything in 15 minutes, I can contain the security incident within my organization without having any causing any damage to the or impact to the customer. So think of your own organization and try to distill down the capabilities as in muscles. Then the next part comes as a leadership is performance. So how fast you can deliver. Everything is speed now, and speed itself is a feature, right? And speed of delivery itself is also important. So I would say that
Really quick to pause you on that one though, and I want to reiterate something you said, because it's actually it's a weave story around speed, right? So what you said earlier, and pulling it all together, is like it's speed, but it's also like security and creating the abstraction that makes that like impossible to not have happen automatically, right? So now you've got a way for a golden path for people to come through to interact with an abstraction that reduces cognitive load, that behind the scene gives them what they want as a customer, while also behind the scenes meeting the compliance, regulatory requirements, all the other things, right? So pulling at these threads, like stitching it together and weaving what you're saying, but like correct me if I'm wrong, but that's exactly what I'm hearing you're saying. That it done well, this is sort of what the internal developer platform would do. And then I really love the topics you're also introducing around how to sell that concept, to actually like make it real within your organization, to like your CFO, your CTO. I think that's actually a critical gap that a lot of people miss, is knowing they know that they need it, they know it's a problem, they don't know how to express that value to leadership in a way that gets them to buy in, to actually be able to fund it in a way that's going to make it successful long term.
Yeah, and I because I have seen in some of the organizations, and when I talk to the other platform architects also, I have seen some of the anti patterns, like the funding was reduced or shrink or not given, or like some of the organizations tried to do the platform as in like a dream platform, saying everything should be there as in a leadership vision. That doesn't work in a practical sense. So you try to, again, going back to the mindset, you try to think your platform as a product and start saying what is the MVP I can do to prove the value, right? So that's the important mindset. And essentially, I would mention a couple of concrete things before we go on to the next topic, which is try to like there is a good amount of reference framework for measuring not necessarily the productivity, but how the platform engineering itself can provide the value and reflective of that value. Refer to the Dora frameworks like Space, which stand for like you essentially do some sort of a reflection. Don't set as a goal. If you are a leader of a platform organization, the moment you set these frameworks or tools as a goal, then it loses the value.
Yep, I agree. And we have a really great question in the chat that I want to bring up here, Lalit, which is relevant to what you're talking about. So I'll put it on screen. This talk is a really important topic. I was wondering, what would your golden path look like for the sake of synchronization? Do you have standardized templates or internal developer portals that teams are expected to follow? And also, how do you maintain platform-wide consistency for teams building with different levels of maturity? Isn't this great? I love this question.
This is great. Yeah, I like those questions. Thanks to the audience. Basically, this is always a part of contention, saying, okay, I understand, I'm sold on idea, how should I start? Give me something which I can start with, right? So there are platforms and tools which is available from different parties and even in the open source. Essentially, you should start thinking about as a least. You don't try to start thinking about the tooling. Start thinking about the value, and that value can be achieved in any of the sort, like even with the shell script, right? I'll give you my own example, and this is long back in probably 2005 2006. I started to ship the product. I was working in a like feature driven development, which is kind of like a agile methodology there. So we used to ship every week, but the shipping was painful because we were doing some sort of deployment and client verification, running the test, and that time CI/CD tools were not non-existent. So what I did is I just codified the batch file, and that becomes our CI/CD shipping tools. But it provided all the team members the reliability which they are expecting from the deployment process. And even today it is true, despite of the tools has been advanced, the reliability what we are seeking from the deployment and some sort of assurity that whatever the work we are shipping, that's correct, right? So that's the kind of things we do. Spotify Backstage is a concrete example of some sort of an enterprise which is doing a large scale platform engineering, and they are the pioneers in this field. But there are multiple organizations which is practicing, and they have their own guided pathways or golden path. I just want to make sure that people understand the golden path as a keyword or term. So golden path itself is like a blueprint of the solutions, and these solutions essentially is itself, that blueprint is not done or created by one single person. It is collaborated, and that collaboration mechanism, or for the sake of synchronization, etc. So I'm going back to the question. You need to have some sort of established ways of working, and that's where your leadership and even your technical leaders come in. So what in my case, in Verizon Connect, we have something called as an architecture chapter. In Amdocs also, we had similar story for the product council. We used to call it as a product council, and in GP I have created the community of practice. So community of practice is just a collaboration forum. What you do is you can implement the inner source. I'm just giving you the keywords. You can find out on the internet all the details about it. But inner sourcing model also works. So we have established the inner sourcing model in Amdocs and a couple of last places where I work. And that has reduced the friction. And that has also increased the understanding of each other's roles and perspective. in a respected manner, and that accelerated the whole delivery cycle. So it's not really in the tooling, it's just the ways of working and changing the mindset. But yes, it golden paths provides you the guardrail and safety mechanism for your deployments or for your value that you're trying to produce.
Yeah, that's great, and thank you for the awesome question, everybody. Keep those questions coming if you have them. That was a super great segue into some other things. And so, look, Lalit, you and I have both overseen a lot of different efforts to build developer platforms, to help teams shift left, to build golden paths for people, to improve overall reduction of cognitive load within an organization. I've seen just as many of those fail as I've seen succeed. Like, pulling it off really takes a right way of thinking about it and a right way of rolling it out and making it work. So maybe we'll talk about a slightly harder topic here and challenge some assumptions and say, like, why does self-service in IDPs actually fail in a lot of organizations?
I think some of the organizations, the organizational structures or team topologies is one factor. Another factor is the incentive.
That's a great book. Also, if you haven't heard of team topologies, that's another Google thing. Maybe not to cover here, but like Google team topologies, it's a great, if you're going to build an IDP and you haven't done it before, it's a good mindset kind of incubator for you. Sorry, go ahead, Lalit, but I wanted to plug that.
No, I think the team topologies, and secondly, I have seen, which is this is the topic that everybody should be talking on the leadership, which is aligning the incentives of the people. Say, for example, a very naive example is, oh, I am an engineer, so I get rewarded for the features I'm shipping without the bugs, right? But as a test engineer, if somebody is existing in that role, I have been rewarded for the amount of bugs I find out. That's a wrong incentive, right? Because you have been essentially, organization or this particular team is set up with the friction inbuilt as in design, right? So that should not be our incentives or goals, right? The goal should be how the test engineer or quality assurance should be the first test or first mindset of this test engineer instead of quality control. So that's a shift in the mindset. Tooling can be changed. Tooling can be, we can convince the leadership to say, okay, there are better tools or better mechanisms that exist. But this incentive alignment is also a problem. And I have seen in I'll not name the names, but some organizations I have seen, we ship a fantastic engineering product, but the sales incentive is not aligned for the SaaS platform or SaaS or selling the SaaS product. So the organization fails. Now, this is not even an engineering problem, but this is still relevant. Why you should set it. And again, this is internal chain of customers. If you set up the incentive in a correct manner, then you probably go ahead. And same thing for like in engineering space or IDP space, identity access, auditability of your infrastructure, environment, and product. Then the dependency management is a huge thing. So, oh, I deployed, or the XYZ team has deployed this, but we forget to switch on that flag. Those kind of scenarios is a constant thing. If you have misalignment of either the miscommunication or misalignment of the incentives. But yeah, those are the concrete things I have seen. Skill gaps I have seen sometimes in a platform team, like and there is one favorite topic, probably you will like it, is our platform is Kubernetes. Right? so that misunderstanding of the whole entire platform organization, saying, oh, we have Argo CD and Argo workflows and we use Kubernetes as our platform. No, Kubernetes is not platform, unfortunately.
Here you go.
it's a infrastructure. So that's a misalignment or misunderstanding of the concept of platform engineering, because Kubernetes is not giving the value to your organization.
Yeah, I would go back to the idea of, you're treating this thing as it's more than technology. It's people, process, and technology, and it's exactly. A product. it's a product, and you have abstractions between you and the consumers of that product, right? So they shouldn't, in order to effectively use that system, they shouldn't have to know how all of the internal pieces work. They should have a way of using the system that you've built that's easy for them to do, that also complies with all of your requirements. One of the places I've really seen these things fail is creating the wrong abstractions and not treating it like a product. So you don't have the right staffing to continuously improve it, take feedback from customers, implement that feedback, and make the system better. And then the other one is you have the wrong level of abstraction. So instead of shifting, making things simpler, you've actually just shifted. You use shift left. The dirty way, the way that the term shift left kind of got tainted over the years is like you didn't shift left the capability, you shifted left the responsibility. And like now people still don't know the code, they still don't know how to use your abstraction, they don't know how the cloud works, and they shouldn't have to. But in many implementations, to your example, the one that you gave, is like you're forcing them to know more than they should have to know to be able to take advantage of the things you're trying to expose to them. And so these are places where I've seen it fail a lot, is a lack of that strategy around product, the comprehensive set of the mindset and all the things wrapped around the technology, the community of practice, like you mentioned as well, to bring people along into that. It's much bigger than a technology problem and even just a people problem. It's the whole bag.
Yeah, we are seeing the same thing right now with the adoption of AI or AI focused product. Like everybody is coming up with their agents. So think about the person who's working in a security team. These are the, like, security people is like hardly regarded, at least from my perspective, because they are the unsung heroes, which is always like fighting the war within the company as well as outside. Because within the company they are not appreciated, because they always say no to the things that engineering is bringing in, mostly, right? That's how they are perceived. But what fundamental shift that we need to make is, as an engineer, is the security teams or infosec teams are the custodian of the customer trust, and that's very important perspective. So we should definitely coordinate and collaborate with the teams which is guardrailing our customers trust, and making sure that we shift with their confidence as well. And that's a completely total different notion. So how we can do that? Yes, you have to have a dialogue as a human being, but at the same time, don't spawn up saying, oh, we have a security agent, we have engineering agent, and like, yeah, it's like a two pass compiler phrase, or saying that in industry, if you have two teams you will get a two pass compiler. So same way that is percolating right now. I'm seeing these kind of anti patterns also going in the industry. Say, oh, we have this team or organization or BU, so we will create our own agent. And the same team, but the context is not shared. As you said, the organization itself is a universal context that is not shared, so the value is not delivered from just the silos. It's delivered through the chain of the links, right?
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. So we talked about, so why does it fail in most organizations? To kind of recap, is these lack of strategy, the lack of the right mindset, not having the proper governance guardrails in place, potentially some skill gaps in some places. So there's a lot of different ways that this can go wrong. But let's also talk about, and you mentioned something really good, and I want to kind of try to elevate the impact here, is like, I guess the question for you would be, what changes? Because you talked about security, you talked about all these other people who historically maybe feel like bottlenecks, but actually could be unlocks done the right way. What changes when security and compliance, observability are built into the platform instead of like bolted on later, or as sort of this separated part of the process? It doesn't feel integrated into the way that you do this kind of this IDP delivery.
Yeah, I think you touch upon. So yeah, so the two phrases come to my mind always. Like you talked about, you hit the nail. So shift left and bolted on. So if you are doing shift left correctly, and not just doing the buzzword, nothing will be bolted on. You will be shipping with all the things in a correct manner, or as I said, as architect, like well architected framework mindset. So it what is happening is you will not even it's like a flow engineering. You will be in always a flow state, which is essentially some sort of rhythm or cadence your engineering team will be shipping. And you will find it, the intrinsic time to value as well as the satisfaction of the engineering teams or the internal stakeholder also grows up, and you can measure it qualitatively and quantitatively, both ways. If you are having these guardrails embedded as well as your golden paths with security, observability, auditability, reliability, all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, and again, we think about the abstraction. So now I have an automatic way to do things that meet our security compliance requirements. Everything's observable. It can be a feedback loop into the process of making things better. It could be a way of addressing customer issues before they even know that they're issues, and overall improving the way that you deliver things to
Absolutely.
your cloud environment. So I think that really, that those real world stories really are landing hard for me. So I appreciate you talking about it. So let's close a little bit with the future. You talked about agents, and you talked about the adjacencies of what we're seeing today with agents and what we've seen in the past with developer platforms. But to kind of bring agents into the platform conversation, like how in your mind does AI change the way that we design and operate these internal developer platforms, kind of bridging the gap between maybe some of the friction of the past with some of the opportunities of the future and the way that like agents and models come into this story?
I think the that changes or it reduce one of the platform engineering feature, as we said, is the reducing the cognitive burden, but at the same time it can also reduce the toil in the whole process, right? And that's where I see the agents are very effective. Say my uh, before agentic platforms, say my security team is geo distributed and they are in a different region and I'm asleep as in owner of the workload or product, they can still figure out the context by utilizing the agents, right? As in concrete examples, some of the organizations are doing fantastic work. I'm also learning and trying to see from their blog post and some of the public domain materials. So I would definitely encourage everyone, if you're on a large enterprise level, try to see what Intercom is doing. Stripe has done a fantastic work with their minions. There is a blog post which is there on their blog. um, and some of the work which is done around is, okay, if I'm not there for 24 hours, my agent will be always there 24 by 7, which means we will be always getting into action, right? It's not about the notification. We always have the notifications, or even I'm thinking of the SRE teams, ops teams, which is buried under the alerts and having alert fatigue, right? But now they can action the things, they can heal the systems without even their own presence, and that's the effective value of the agents. For thinking work itself, I still think that the humans are better in thinking. Gathering the context in sometimes, definitely agents. So I see agent or agentic workflows as tools, but yeah, I'm inclined towards not just the information purpose, but more on the action based agents, which is more important for infrastructure, security, observability kind of workloads.
I love it. So I want to ask you one more closing question then, and then we'll talk a little bit about InfraCodebase as a platform and how we're being looked at by a lot of really interesting companies as a solution to a modern internal developer platform. But in the traditional sense, so if you could fix one bottleneck in your organization tomorrow around
Mhm.
this, what would it be? What's the number one thing you would do?
Well, I think it's bottleneck for.
For teams being able to operate in this mindset of being able to deliver autonomously with security and quickly through internal developer platforms. If you wanted to do that, if there was
Yeah,
a bottleneck in the way of being able to accomplish that, what's the one you would eliminate?
I I would say let me ship to the production as fast as possible and as soon as I commit. So whatever that gets into the way of it, just get rid of it. Because, and the second part which I will touch upon is experimentation. Allow me to experiment.
I love that. Yeah, and actually, experimentation is super important. I'm seeing that today with AI as well. So, a lot of large enterprise companies are building a lot of platforms to support this hypothetical future scale for multiple agents, multiple teams trying to build the same things in different ways. We're trying to solve similar problems as what we've always had with internal developer platforms for agents by creating a consistent layer for observability, monitoring, for shipping agents, for building agents, because everybody's building different things. And the reality of what's happening right now in a lot of enterprise companies is you have more agent platforms than you have agents. You're like spending a lot of time building this ecosystem of things. You don't even have something in production running that's actually serving your customers and generating revenue or some return on value for like your investment. And so what I always tell people with agents as well is don't get too locked into this idea of an enterprise standard and platform and governance right now. What you really need to do is experiment and learn and grow through like figuring out what works for you, because the reality of the state of AI today for agents, and part of the reason why it's so hard to build them and why MIT says 95% of AI projects fail is because the reality is, even though the cloud providers sell their services as super mature, even though the SDKs on their face look like they're ready to go, there's all kinds of like missing abstraction, missing orchestration pieces. Like control is limited in many cases. You're locked into specific models. Cloud platform services don't all expose all the same things. For example, they might only be available in one region, and they might not support private endpoints for things like hosting your agents on their platforms. And so the reality of what happens today is, I want to build an agent in my company. I go and I get funding, and we've got these great ideas, and all the cloud teams and marketing teams have told us this is possible. And then the engineering starts, and you realize, oh man, there's a ton of blockers to us actually achieving this. And so that's why starting with smaller dollar experiments, doing a lot of them and letting the successful ones thrive, and then building the platform around what's working well is probably the best case scenario right now for teams, which is the way that the best companies who adopt IDPs in the past and today actually meaningfully make those things happen for their teams. So it's cool to see these themes come up over and over.
You touch upon the right part, which is despite of the agentic everything, I would highly encourage everyone to definitely read the Stripe blog post, which is with the Stripe minions. That's the keyword you can search around Stripe blog. The beauty of that particular piece is itself, they took the open source agent Goose, which is coming from the blogs, and now it's a CNCF agent. And agent and agentic workflows inherently are indeterministic because of the nature of LLM technologies, right? But they are shipping or generating the code, and their CI/CD, security, observability, all things in the pipeline are essentially the deterministic components, which is providing the reliability. So it's a beautiful piece around how you can take the indeterministic technology and do the deterministic flow, as in guardrails or controls, and provide the value to the customers and ship it like anything. So definitely there are certain organizations which is doing fantastic work around it despite of the complexity. I mean, Stripe is a global company. I don't need to tell you, like, it's more than more than GDP of a couple of countries, right? So think of if that organization is able to achieve the value through the common shared platform engineering, and that's the work of their platform engineering teams. So I would highly encourage that to read it, and definitely like you have to think in or change the mindset around the platforms. It's not in the tooling, and tooling should be holistically thought about, not just a one tool. I like infra code base because of the very simple reason I'm a visual person. So it provides me all the assurity and reliability and understanding, saying, okay, this, if I'm drawing this diagram easily enough, it can be shipping the same code. So we are just one level abstraction above what we are doing like a couple of years ago. But the principle stays the same.
I think that's Perfect, and it's a great segue. Thank you so much. I want to conclude this piece, and we're going to talk a little bit about the product too. But thank you so much,
Sure.
Lalit, for your insights. This has been an incredible conversation. If you want to get to know Lalit better, follow what Lalit does, or talk with him more about these topics, I've just flashed his LinkedIn on the screen. It's LinkedIn.in/Lalit Kale. That's his name. So hopefully it's easy for you to find him and to follow him. I highly encourage it. What Lalit was just talking about was the product that we built, the company that we have, which is called InfraCodebase, infracodebase.com. What we found about the product, and it's very interesting because our customers have been telling us our marketing story. They're like helping us to understand where things are most valuable. What we've been finding from our product, which is an agentic operating system for designing, coding, shipping, and operating cloud infrastructure at scale, is that there's a lot of interest in this platform as an IDP or a way of accelerating application developers to be able to move quickly into highly regulated environments. So, for example, we were talking with a top 10 bank who said that we love your product because it's like Vercel, but it's in that it provides an abstraction for developers to be able to deploy applications into our environment, but we can keep our data where we can secure it, where we can monitor it, where it meets all of our compliance and regulatory requirements by shipping it to our cloud instead of to Vercel or something like that. And so InfraCodebase, when we think about IDP, and you were so right, like the real problem is not writing code. Like I'm going to do a quick demo in just a second of the product so you can see what it looks like. You're going to see it generate code. And when you do, I just want you to understand that code generation is the least important part of what you're actually going to see. What really matters are the topics that we've talked about today and why this platform is so valuable, which is universal context, meaning you have enterprise context that you can share with your entire team. And you have universal tools. Think about being able to pull in your draw.ios for diagrams, being able to pull on Confluence for documentation, GitLab, Jira, all these types of things to be able to get your organizational context, as well as like your rules and requirements. It could be, we have to be ISO 27101. It might be that have to be GDPR compliant, that it needs to be FedRAMP high. It could be that you have specific coding standards or security requirements that you have to meet. All of this can be embedded in the platform as rule sets, as universal context for the agent to be able to execute across the board. And so when we think back to like, what is an IDP and how we think about what an IDP is, it's like one place to define and access infrastructure, one way to interact with tools and systems, and one set of standards that apply everywhere and gives teams a clear path instead of a lot of different choices that may or may not work for them to be able to ship things. So I'm going to do a quick example here. We're going to start a new workspace, and you can start from GitHub or you can start from scratch. And I'm just going to speak to the agent here. Let's create a web app over SQL in Azure using Terraform that's production ready. So when we create a new workspace, think about a workspace as analogous to a repository. So if we tie that back to infrastructure code concepts of the past and today, is like a repo might be a module, it might be a landing zone, it might be a specific application infrastructure. But the important part is it should be in the context of your actual cloud environment, not like vanilla Terraform or whatever language that you're using. So it's any cloud, any language, right? So I'll just tell it here. This is for, let's call it a production deployment, and go ahead and do some research to make sure we're following best practices. So the agent in this early step of discovery is going to do some research for us and help us to achieve better results, because what we've seen too in the past with the product when we would get people straight into the workspace was the prompts were relatively generic. And as you may or may not know, if you've had a lot of experience with AI, the more generic your input, the more base the output. And so you want to make sure that it's connected to all of the important components of your ecosystem so that you can, in best practices or whatever those things might be, so that you can be able to create something that's actually a high quality result. So we're just trying to streamline that process for you. So by going through this process, the agent's going to put together a workspace configuration that we can then use to create a new place for us to start the project that we want to do within our company. And again, this is like the federation side of things. The enterprise configuration where you put your tools and agents, all these things is one place. And then here's where we actually do the process of setting up our project. So you can see that we get a workspace with a name, a description, a visibility. Then you have a bunch of rule sets. This is how we can constrain the agent to do specific things that we want it to do. You can take things off of this list if you don't think that they're necessary. You can add new things to this list as well as you come through. We also support MCP as an integration layer. This is how we get access to the other tools inside of our ecosystem. I'm going to add another one here, the Terraform MCP as well, since we're going to be using Terraform. And you can also create workflows, which is a way to make the agent operate in the way that your teams actually operate. So that might mean first creating documentation, then doing architecture, then doing the delivery of the code, etc. You can review exactly what the plan is from the agent to be able to go build this infrastructure, and then you can create that workspace. One of the things I want to demonstrate through this is like, one, in the past, the way that you would solve a problem like this is you might use Terraform modules. So in order to like embed security requirements into your infrastructure delivery system, you would create version modules, store those in repos, and make that something you could like construct into something that's compliant with your organization's requirements. The traditional problem with this has always been that not only now do people still need to kind of understand cloud concepts, but they also need to understand your system and maybe even a little bit about Terraform to be able to self-service whatever they're doing inside of your cloud environment. So by leveraging AI to be able to consume your rule sets, follow those rules, and be able to deliver infrastructure, there's even conversations we're having now with companies when they look at this product and say, do we even need modules anymore when we can assess the compliance across all of the infrastructure regardless of modules, right? Because they come with their own technical weight. So this is just an example of how, as an IDP, this provides you the ability to get that consistency, that security, that compliance requirements met, while also providing the flexibility to go from intent or from spec to a technically valid infrastructure that you can ship to your cloud environment directly from this platform.
Justin, I would like to add some more things because of the early user of the infra code base. Is the thing I loved about is how many I have seen so many tons of modules and friction around it, around the Terraform code, and then you assemble a lot of other tools, TFSec, Chekhov, or other things. Everything is in a one workflow, and I can set a golden path. So believe me or not, you can actually compose your own template. You can embed your template and create your template along with all the integrations. So that's the fantastic value I can find, and that also correlates to our how to set up the golden path in a concrete way conversation. Definitely. So yeah, I found a lot of value in the tooling itself, not because of the tooling, but how it is also solving the human problems which exist, but through the engineering.
Yeah, the reality is, and thanks for that, Lilith. It really means a lot that you feel that way about the product. Inside of enterprise organizations, you also have to kind of acknowledge that not everybody is a developer, right? And even on the app developer side, not everybody knows much about the cloud. And so we're trying to reduce friction and reduce cognitive load and make it so that people can describe what they want and to build what they need inside of the context of your organizational requirements. And that means that what you've done is you've actually made it easier for your security engineers to come in and interrogate your code to impact the outcomes inside of the code itself, for your cloud architects to come in and to be able to ensure the system is designed well, because they don't need to have VS Code installed. They don't need to know how to install MCP servers or to get Claude Code or to be able to talk to it. And the other piece of that is that even if they could, a lot of that is like sort of more focused on the individual developer. Yes, you can share skills to a repo and people can pull it down, but there's so much technical expertise required to do that, where when you embed everything into the platform, things like what you mentioned, the tools like Chekhov, TFSec, stuff that's just built in, people don't need to install that on their machine, especially if they're not a developer. It's all about intent and spec to design and development of the infrastructure itself. And so it really truly creates this it flattens it all out to where everybody can impact great outcomes and follow the right rules to be able to get to what it is that your organization actually requires. So that's sort of the idea and benefits of this. Is, again, it's not about the fact we're generating code. It's that this code that we're generating right now is compliant with our organizational standards and requirements based on the rule sets that we embedded at creation time.
And it does it transparently. That's another feature I find, because usually I don't like the black box thing saying, oh, tada, this is the magic, and it appears. I really hate that kind of tooling. So I love when you transparently, it's not just saying agent and blah blah of a code. It's you're presenting it in a modular fashion. Everything is like I'm writing that code, and that actually enhances the trust of the user onto the generated code.
It's a really good point, because actually the problem we're really solving is vibe code. Like, vibe coding is giving AI a bad rep, in particular when it comes to infrastructure, and in particular when it comes to production systems, right? And so what we're trying to do is actually the first 80% of that problem, like the scaffolding of IAC, is like a problem you solve with any generic tool. What we're actually trying to do is provide the last mile, where you can go from nothing intent essentially and specs to a production ready system that complies with your requirements. And what that really gets you isn't just a code artifact. What that gets you is, over time, as you demonstrate the capabilities of this platform, you earn trust. You earn trust with the teams, and then you can actually ship faster because everybody believes in it. They understand it. They know that it's going to work. It's going to do what they expect it to do. And so ultimately, we're balancing that speed and trust equation. Like we want to move fast with AI. That's great. We're generating code, but it has to be secure, compliant, and it has to be able to not only be compliant, but demonstrate to me that I can trust the output of it. So I picked a production ready use case. So it's building like a whole bunch of things for me, including environments, different modules, and scripts to do the deployment. So it is just about finished here. One thing that we may or may not be able to show, and for everybody else, thank you if you came and you have to leave now at the top of the hour. We really appreciate the time. I'm going to spend the last 5 minutes kind of wrapping this conversation up and demonstrating how the platform provides trust in the way that we deliver the infrastructure to the environment. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone, and Lalit, thank you as well for coming to be a part of this. Actually, you know what? We'll conclude it. What I will say is that what you're going to miss here, and we'll cover in future sessions, and we'll do dedicated webinars for, is around compliance and security and trust. What you get out of this at the end is the code. You also get an architecture diagram. And what we're also going to get is a human level audit and compliance scoring against all of our frameworks for this specific thing that we just deployed. And now we can measure that at scale across any framework and any rule set that we want to across our entire company. So that's where it starts to get really powerful. Universal context, universal compliance, universal access to tools to be able to build things. So anyway, thank you, Lalit. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming. Have an amazing rest of your week. This has been an awesome conversation.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Yep.
Hello. I loved it.